Good evening and welcome to a little bit different version of Close-Up 13 this evening. I'm Bob Lamar, and with me is the president of the Rossville-Springcreek Historical Society, Helen Gilmore. Helen, welcome to the program.
Thank you for being here.
Well, Helen, I want to first start out by talking about where we are and what the significance of this place is.
Well, we're in the middle of the African Jackson Cemetery in Rossville, which is adjacent to Piqua, Ohio. In fact, it's right across the bridge from Piqua, Ohio, off of 25A North. And this is a historical cemetery now, which just went on National Register. And where we're standing at is by a tombstone here of a lot of veterans of the Civil War. These were Randolph's slaves, and they were freed by John Randolph of Roanoke, Virginia in 1846. And they went back when the Civil War started to free the rest of their brothers in the South.
And that's who's buried here in the cemetery, just slaves from the Randolph plantation?
That's right. There's 134 graves here. Well, some of them are the children. They're not all the slaves. Some of them are the slaves' children buried here also.
How did the slaves end up here near Piqua? They certainly didn't just drop in here. How did they decide to get back here?
Well, it's a long story, so I'll try to make it as short as possible. It was during the time when John Randolph freed his slaves in 1833 that he made 3 wills stating to set his people free. And after he died, that this is how they got, well, he had money provisions for them. He bought 2,000 acres of land up in Mercer County, for instance, for them to settle on, farmland, and which they didn't reach the land because there were immigrants from other countries waiting there for them when they got there, and it was quite a battle. And so people of Piqua, they camped out after they left up around Mercer County, they camped out by the river here. So the people of Piqua accepted them here. And this is where they worked on farms here in this area and bought the land for their homes over here.
I heard you mention that this happened around the early 1830s, about 33?
When John Randolph died, yes. And this is when they found the 3 wills to set his slaves free. And each will stipulated to set them free.
Well, now that's well before the Civil War, almost 30 years before the Civil War. I probably don't think that was too common back then.
No, and they called him a lunatic. They said he was crazy because there was 383 slaves that he set free at one time, and that's why they said he was crazy. They didn't really want to pay attention to the wills, and they were held in Virginia. Took 13 years of court battle for them to be set free because John Randolph's brother did not want to set them free, so they were freed 13 years later. In the meantime,
so they really didn't get out till like 46.
Right. And in the meantime, then that's when the immigrants took over their land here, settled on it, built farmhouses on it. When they got here, it was already cleared off.
So they were kind of stuck.
Really.
Okay. How did you ever find out who's buried here, Helen? And it must have taken an ungodly amount of research.
It did. It took a whole winter. The city of Piqua, the city building, the people there let us go in. Me and my husband do research on the death records. And on the death records, it tells you exactly where the people are buried. And it was very easy to find because it was either colored or Negro. And it told you exactly how old they were and where they were buried at. So we pulled all the African Jackson cemetery names out of there. Then we did the same thing in the county records. And this is how we found. And of course, I have a map of about, I think there's 75 already listed in here. One of them's they're my great-grandmother and great-grandfather in here.
So you have a personal stake in this,
yes,
as well as just a historical one.
That's right. My great-uncles are buried in here. In fact, one of my great-uncles was Philip White, which was a veteran, Civil War veteran, buried here.
Okay, I'm still not sure on how you know that this grave, for instance, Sergeant Davis, is really Sergeant Davis in there. I realize you got a lot of names from the courthouse, but how can we be sure who's where?
I wrote to Washington, D.C., and took the names off of each stone, and they wrote back to me and told me what time period they died in, this kind of thing. I've got records of that also.
Was it
And
hard?
then the Piqua, excuse me, maybe I want to
That's
say
okay.
before I forget it, the Piqua Library has some of the records on these stone veterans in the cemetery also.
Now, when did you begin this project? And once you got started and figured out that you had something here, was it tough to work with the government agencies?
At first, because they didn't see any need. Wonder what was I fighting so hard to keep this land for, And then after I told them the story, and they seen it was history, then they are now today working with us, which is real great.
And now you've accomplished one of your real big goals, haven't you?
That's true. That is true. All they wanted, the county, the zoning board, all they wanted was a plan. Did we have a plan? And I went home, me and my husband sat down at the table, and we drew up the future plans of Rossville, and took it to an architect through the river corridor, and they drew up the plans for them. We took it back to the zoning board, and they said, well, they've got a plan. As long as they got a plan, and that we won't bother them anymore. And they didn't know how sensitive we were about this territory. The fact that my name's Gilmore now, and it wasn't then, they didn't even realize I had moved away from Piqua and lived in Dayton for 16 years, and when I came back, they didn't know who I was, to the fact I had to tell them, hey, these are my people here, and this is where I was born, right over here.
Now, how many others like you are in your society that are interested in this type of thing and developing it?
Well, we're starting to bring in new members, working members, that is. So this is what we need now. We need work, and so we're bringing in people that are not only interested in just being a member of the organization, but also are interested in doing work. This is what we have to do from here on. Clear off the land over here, do a lot of landscaping and this kind of thing to make it a pretty place for people to tour. In fact, people have already started touring the area, and we haven't even broke the ice and getting anything started here.
Well, let's face it, in order to do that type of a project, you're going to have money.
That's
I'm sure
right.
you can't afford it completely out of your own pocket or the people that are in your society.
Right.
How the devil are you going to get the money?
Well, we're working on different trust funds now, places in different areas. Wrote 3 or 4 letters in different places, and I'm waiting now to hear from them to see if they can donate money to help us with this project.
Now, are we talking about government again?
Yes.
So there's no time frame on that.
That's right, but we're still working on it.
You really don't have any other choice, though, do you?
That's right.
You've got to get it that way.
We've went as far as we can go as far as money is concerned, and now we need help.
Do you know of any other descendants of these people who are buried here, like yourself, that are living in the immediate area?
Yes, there's a lady who was right down here, it was Mrs. Florence Scott. She was just here a while ago. She's one of the descendants, and there's a Mr. Herbert Wells that lives in the Maroon House there. He's a descendant of the Randolph slaves, which is a cousin of mine. And we're all related here. Most of the people, I would say over half of the people in Piqua are descendants of the Randolph slaves. And over half of the black people in Troy and Sydney are relation to these Randolph slaves.
So that would give you one real good, solid following of people who are interested in this type of, preserving this piece of ground
That's
we're
right.
standing on.
I went to Mr. Herbert Moulton, which is part of the Randolph slaves descendants. I went to him 2 days ago, and he had a picture of his great-grandfather, Joseph Moulton, who started the court case in trying to get the land back. That court case went from 1907 up to 1916, and he gave me a lot of information about his immediate family, and he is the oldest one. I was glad I got to him. This is what I've been doing, going around getting records of the older ones on tape so that I can they've been giving me pictures and this kind of thing so I can keep up with, so we won't lose the history.
You really need to build up ammunition when you go before the state boards, and it's even national level that we're talking now, that this historical site is a national historical site. So
That's right.
You must have had to gather all your eggs in one basket and go say, look, this is what I have.
That's exactly what happened. And of course I did have help from a preservation officer, Mary Ann Brown, which she is now the preservation officer of this whole district. She did a lot of help, and David Simmons, he's on the preservation board, did a lot of help. I didn't do this alone. When it got to Columbus, I had a lot of help because they knew what I had, and they've been keeping up with me all this time with it, and without their help, I don't know how I could have done it.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the actual people that are here in the cemetery. That's one of the most interesting points for people who are interested in learning about history, even if they're not really their direct descendants.
Well,
start with who's the oldest person buried in here?
Well, the oldest one I found was my great-grandfather, which he was born in the 1700s. And I found that through the dockets because he had a will for some land he owned. He left a will for his children, which one of them was my grandmother. And when I traced it back, he was about as close to the slave boats as you can get in my research.
So he actually came over here on slave boats then?
From what I can gather, yes, from the West Coast. So far, I've got to go do some more research on that. But this is documental proof that I've run into. Also, I have correspondence with the historical societies in Virginia. Also, are feeding me information from there about these Randolph slaves also.
Because everyone that is now here at one time was in Virginia on Mr. Randolph's
plantation, and they had something like 80,000 acres of land. They were Virginia Randolphs. They started the state of Virginia. Mary and William Randolph came here from England, and I also wrote to England. I know the whole history of the Randolphs family. I know they sent me from a college all the information where they went there in college over in England. One gravestone is, you can't hardly see it from here, but the child of this mother and father here was Goodrich Giles, and he and another fellow built the Classics Theater in Dayton, Ohio. He was one of the rich Randolph slave descendants. He owned 4 farms here, and there's quite a history on him also. So what I'm doing now, I've got them all together, and I'm doing individual research on each family groups now, linking them.
And to the best of your knowledge, how many people are in here now?
134.
And some of those are obviously family descendants from others that came. Do you know how many originally came?
Well, most of them came here as babies. Some of them came here as children with the parents.
Of the people that camped out on the river.
That's right.
And then from then on it just kind of grew?
That's right. To a great big number of children. Well, see, as they begin to spread out, some went to Sydney and some went to Troy. So they didn't all stay here. It was quite a few of them to stay in one place. So they formed little villages like Hanktown, Marshalltown, and around West Milton, and then we have on Horseshoe Bend Road was Marshalltown, and on Route 47 in Shelby County was another little village. So they just sort of made little villages all over the territory.
Do you have any knowledge of any other cemeteries, maybe not quite as large as this, but in those areas?
Yes, on 571 there's a cemetery of the rest of the family here that I'm working on now, getting it recorded of all the people that died there, hoping maybe someday to get it on National Register, because that's these are the only 2 cemeteries left out of 4.
Now I understand that this type of thing that you're doing is not only benefiting people here, but you yourself are now starting to become somewhat of an authority, and you're going to be speaking at Purdue. Is that correct?
That's right.
That's quite an honor,
yes,
Helen.
Yes, it is. I was really, I couldn't hardly speak because I couldn't believe it. And I got a letter and then a phone call. They want me to come up the 18th of March and give a slide presentation and a speech on the Randolph slaves and how I did my research.
Boy, what are you going to tell them? Well,
I'll just have to start from where I started from the beginning up till now. And I'm really proud and happy that this cemetery is on National Register. It took a lot of work. I really couldn't believe it when it did happen.
Okay, I'm sure you've had dreams about what the place is going to look like when you finally do get some money from the government and this and that. If you could, just point around and show some plans that you have for the cemetery.
Well, from the corner of the end of the cemetery this way all the way to the back part here will be evergreens, different kind of blooming flowers all year round. There'll be stones all through the cemetery, which will be good for research and for people that want to come here to find their people, because there's a lot of the descendants are scattered all over the United States now, and they might pick up a paper or something and hear about it, and maybe they want to come here and do some research on it, and it's here for them. And when we finish with this whole territory, it should be a beautiful place to come to visit. We're going to put like parking areas where people can eat, like when they come here to visit from way off somewhere. We're going to have a sort of a park across over in this section over here, so that people can, eat or relax as they tour the areas. We have a lot of houses here that were built by the slaves. We're getting ready to restore those. So it's a big job. It's going to take a while to get it done.
In addition to the actual cemetery itself, are you busy collecting artifacts and things from that time period that belonged to slaves?
Yes, I am. And people have been very cooperative doing it because we're getting ready to open up a museum here in Rossville in June. And it will be a culture center also. I've sent to places in Africa, and they're sending me artifacts from Africa, from the very territory we came from.
What types of things, if you could give us a little bit of a preview, you've got
Yeah.
to be excited about this.
Paintings and carvings, jewelry, ancient jewelry they're sending me from different areas. So it'll be back in the time period of the 17th and 18th century.
Now, these people here that are buried here, did they kind of have their own little society? And do you know very much about how that was?
Yes, they had their own little town here. They had a grocery store. They had everything that they needed. They didn't really have to go to town for anything. They had a little village set up here on their own.
Did they run into any trouble once they got here?
Some, little. You could imagine, you can see that this many people coming in one big group settling in one place. Yes, it did.
Some strangers move in
Yes.
that used to be down by the river, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden there's hundreds of them here near Piqua. Huh?
Yeah, well, they all came here. The 383 all settled here, came here in this area at one time. So they helped them, though, and they began to get on their feet and began to build homes and things like this to get established here. So now today they are citizens of Piqua.
And then, of course, the war came along, and that probably
Made
had a
another
big change on everybody.
Yes, the Civil War. But I'm glad that when the Civil War broke out, that some of these could go back. I don't believe in war. War is terrible, but they believed in setting their people free, and that's what they went back to fight. War is a terrible thing, and that Civil War was a bloody, terrible thing, and it should never have happened.
Now, the people that we're talking about were people back in Virginia, is that correct?
The people where?
That they went back to get
Yes,
to set free?
they fought the war to set those free that was already in slavery in Virginia, yes.
Now, how did this come about? Was it people like Randolph's brother? Did they go back to the original plantation there?
No, they just fought the war in different areas there. They didn't go. They were on the Union side, so they was fighting. Yeah, fighting the South. So they fought all down around in the South in different areas.
What kind of information have you received from people in historical societies in Virginia near the place of the origination?
I've got maps of Roanoke, Virginia in the 1800s. I've got maps of the state of Virginia in the middle 1800s, so they've been sending me things like that, and I can put those in the museum because I'm sure people would like to see them.
Helen, what can someone do if they want to become involved in your project and maybe be around a piece of history like this?
What could someone do? Well,
how can they become affiliated with your organization?
oh, they can join the organization if they want to. They're free to join. It's open to, that's where we're getting ready to have a meeting now, the 19th of March, which we're going to advertise in the paper that it's open to the public. It'll be a general meeting.
Do you meet near here?
Yes, it'll be at Staunton School at 2 o'clock. So anyone's welcome to come.
I imagine you could use a hand here and there, huh?
Yes.
Do you still have a lot of research left to do?
Oh, yes. We've got a lot of research to do in Shelby County. And I've got a lot of research to do in Virginia, in the state of Virginia itself.
You mentioned your husband does a lot to help you with this
Yes.
type of thing. Are you and he working on something currently? Is this the type of thing that it just doesn't die, it's always with
That's right.
you?
It'll be with me the rest of my life, and I enjoy it. Keeps me young, happy.
Okay. Thank you very much, Helen Gilmore, for being on Close-Up 13. We're out here at Jackson Cemetery, where Helen and some folks from her organization have now turned this place into a national historical site. For Close-Up 13, I'm Bob Lamar. Don't forget to stay tuned. Dale Robbins is up next with the news. Have a good evening.